Hello, and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers with whatever writing ailments you might have.
Whether it's related to your craft or your career, we can help.
Are you ready for your session?
The doctors are in.
So, Tom, it's the age-old debate. Does size matter? I'm talking about scripts. I'm talking about scripts. This is a writing show.
Okay. Does length matter? Does script length matter? I think is what you're getting at, right?
Yes.
I'm sure it always matters. Whatever your script length is, you want to make sure that everything on the page is something that needs to be there. But the ticking clock for TV, for streaming, is much less omnipresent in our writing. Movies obviously will still, have to kind of fit into that 2-hour window for, theatrical, obviously.
So let's break it down, because it kind of depends on the application, right? So if you're going for broadcast, what would you say? Yeah?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. If it's going to be on broadcast, it definitely needs to fit. Now, I'll have one caveat for that. I believe a lot of the streamers have things written knowing that they may actually license it for broadcast someday.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this was more likely in the early days, because I always thought Netflix was going to license their stuff for TV, but it doesn't seem like they did. But there were some shows that were like cable-y shows that did wind up on syndication and had to be edited down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's a very rare case. But so in general, if you're going for broadcast, yeah, you're going to stick to the 44-minute kind of mark for an hour.
For like a drama, 22.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, so yeah.
You can go a little bit longer for a pilot, just a smidge. But yeah, in general, because you got those ad breaks.
But nowadays, a lot of people are like, I'm writing this for a streamer. You ever get that? It's almost like the old idea of I'm going to write it for a certain actor. Now I'm writing it for a certain network. So sometimes people write things with certain streamers or networks in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of, those networks may have their own guidelines, but if you're making it for Netflix, you really don't have to be solid onto a specific, length.
But I would argue, even for a streamer, like, yeah, you don't have to be so rigid, but people still kind of are used to the broadcast model. Like, if you I guess I'll sit through a 2-hour episode, but if every episode is 2 hours, I don't know if I want to devote that kind of time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's where it comes down for me mentally, is I sit down and look at what I'm going to stream, and a length has a lot to do with it. Like, how much time do I want to invest in this sitting of TV?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some, especially foreign shows, a lot of Korean dramas that have episodes that are an hour to hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like watching a movie. It's a big commitment. And unless okay, I'm going to watch the first half of this, you're in for a long ride. So a lot of times I'll pick something that's shorter. But then you have some weird ones that are kind of odd, like especially on Disney Plus, I've noticed. I was just watching Hawkeye, and there are some episodes that are in the 30s and some episodes that are in the 40s, and then you get your episode that's in the 50s. In minutes I'm talking. So it's really weird how their inconsistency happens.
Wait, is this 50 minutes but no ads, or are there ads?
No ads.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll have, yes. And same thing with, I think, Cowboy Bebop on Netflix, almost close to an hour-long episodes. And then occasionally you'll have a shorter episode. So it really depends on the content. They're really trying to tell the story trying to tell the story they want to tell, and using as much space as they need to, in such as one episode may be shorter than another, but that feels weird for the viewer, I think.
To have that inconsistency?
I think it's weird for me as the viewer, would definitely finds it inconsistent. And maybe as a writer, you're like, oh, I can leave in this scene because it's for a streamer. The scene that maybe would get cut, because of length for broadcast, but it's a great scene. So you get to keep it in, but then that puts that episode longer than the others. but it's worth it, I guess. And it also depends, the streamers seem to spend a lot of money on budgets, so they're not cutting because of cost either.
Now, here's an interesting question. When they have those, like, I haven't seen Hawkeye, but I'm assuming Disney, they usually release week by week, right? Did they release all of the Hawkeye episodes at once?
No, that was week to week.
Okay, because I mean, I can understand inconsistent timing if you're like, okay, but you have all 10 episodes, because then you don't notice because you're just going on and on and on. But if it's like week by week,
Hmm.
then you might be like, oh, look at this half-hour episode, but next week is 50 minutes. What? I don't know.
Yeah, I recently watched the third season of Lost in Space on Netflix. Great show. The episodes were anywhere from like 35 to 45 minutes in those. So they were longer than, a sitcom, but, closer to the drama length, but sometimes they were shorter. Those episodes obviously all had huge budgets too. So they put a lot of the money into special effects instead of minutes.
Did it feel like when you were watching something that was longer, did it feel bloated, or were you like, "Oh, no, this every single scene works for the story?"
I'd have to think about individual shows in that case and individual episodes. It's hard to say, but on occasion, you get that antsy feeling like, is this going to be over soon?
Which is not a good feeling to have if you're
No,
watching something, yeah.
yeah, I'm often like, sometimes it's like almost like looking for that slow part to say, okay, I'm going to stop here. Especially with the
Mhm.
Korean dramas, they always seem to have some midpoint that's kind of like a little breather. So I'm like, oh, this is a good place to stop.
Now if you're writing for an agent, you're probably sending a spec or an original or both, they probably still wanna see that you can follow broadcast guidelines. So I would say script length matters for an agent,
Yeah,
and for
absolutely.
fellowships as well, because you're still speccing or sending in something that would be, like, broadcast, not I don't know, I think it would depend actually on the fellowship,
They usually have their own specific settings. Like they might say up to 60 pages or something like
which
that.
is still kind of technically
Technically an
broadcast
hour without,
guidelines, not
yeah.
streamer guidelines, yeah. I mean, and also with fellowships, they sort of things kind of come and go in vogues, like in vogues, in vogue. Like, for example, one year it was like everything was spec, and then it was like everything original, and then it was like half spec, half original. So it just kind of depends on the year, also.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually was talking to a animation producer about a project I want to work on, and he even suggested writing shorts about it, about the subject, to get it started, and doing like little, even like 2 to 3 minute, even 3 minute or less videos,
Hmm.
for like YouTube, to like, as content creation, to kind of get the characters that I wanted to create out there and kind of start getting the story going. There's that freedom too, depending on where your project's going. If you're going to do your own creation, so.
And that's another thing. If you're going like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, shorter is better, right? Like, you know,
Hmm.
um, there are shows that I can think of that are on YouTube that also ended up on Hulu. Those episodes are like 10 minutes. I mean, that's definitely not broadcast, you
Hmm.
know?
Oh, you never watch Quibi? I can't remember how you
Oh,
pronounce it now.
Quibi? Or
Quibi.
no, I think it's supposed to be I think it's an abbreviation for quick bites. So Quibi, right?
Quibi. Okay.
Or
See,
Quibi,
it
maybe?
was around for so long that I never learned how to say it.
I know, right?
But I
Blink and
did
you miss
watch
it.
it. I did watch some stuff on there, and that was basically the best things on there were almost like movies that were divided into episodes of 7 or 8 minutes. In that case, they were writing it that way because they wanted there to be like cliffhangers every 7 or 8 minutes. So it's a little different style, but it really was just a movie that was written to be chopped up.
Yeah.
I don't consider those necessarily episodes as opposed to just piecing out your movie into chunks.
Well, because that was meant for commuters. So they assumed that
Hmm.
you had a well, gosh, anybody in LA has a 7-minute commute? Wow, I'm envious. But I
Good
mean,
luck.
in general, like enough for you to brush your teeth or like eat breakfast or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's like how much time do I have between train stops or whatever to watch an episode of something? I mean, and those had some big names too. Like Chris Hemsworth was in one of them, and
I think they had Reese Witherspoon and they had oh golly, what's her name?
the girl from Game of Thrones that played Sansa Stark, Sophie something. I can't remember her
Oh,
name.
I was actually thinking of, Chrissy Teigen. She had, like,
Oh,
a
okay.
judge show, I think, or something.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So that was those were some experiments in different lengths that did or didn't work. I don't think they got any awards.
Well, they weren't I mean, they really weren't around for a long time, and you can't wa
No,
I don't think you can watch any Quibi content anywhere,
I
right?
think
I think
didn't
it's
they
just
get?
gone.
I think it's sold to somebody. I can't remember.
Oh, okay, so I didn't know if you could, like, rewatch it on other platforms or whatever, you
No,
know?
no, it was on the phone and that was it. Yeah.
And you know what's funny is you would think in terms of script length and all that, you would think with the pandemic, we would be totally cool with, like, 3-hour movies, but, like, everybody's on TikTok, which is, like, 30 seconds.
Yeah, but the thing I'm guilty of this is going down that rabbit hole is I'll spend a half hour watching TikToks before
Yeah,
I even
true.
realize it. Before I even realize that maybe 10 or 15 minutes go by, I'm like I should really do something besides this. But that flicking, that constant, every
Yeah.
30 seconds or minute, it's like, and there's the endless flow. And Twitter's just as bad. The endless scroll, I think, should be outlawed.
But the way, like, TikTok or Twitter or whatever is set up well, maybe not Twitter if you're following someone's, like, long you know how some people will, like, live tweet a event or whatever, but, like, on TikTok, the way it's set up, it's not like every time you flick, you're going to the next episode in a series. You're watching somebody else's story. So you're always
Hmm.
flipping through different friends' stories. It's not the same continuous story. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not like it's a narrative. Like yeah, it's not something you can follow. It's just
Mhm.
it's the ADHD in your brain being constantly, um, you know, jazzed by
Yeah.
something new. So
Yeah.
that's completely different, obviously. But it's a way to suck eyeballs away from scripted material.
I think with film things are still pretty much in that realm of like, animation is around 60 to 90 minutes and comedies are maybe like, an hour and a half and dramas could be up to 2 hours. Like I think we're still very much page count matters for
Yeah,
film.
I still think that's not going to change. I mean, you still have to be James Cameron before you get to make Avatar, those kinds of things, or making Harry Potter at 3 hours.
I don't was Harry Potter 3 hours?
Well, at least one of them was.
Well, the second one or I'm sorry, not the second one. The last one was cut into 2, but I think in general they were usually like
Two and a half,
two-ish, yeah.
two and a
I
half.
feel like the era of the three-hour movie was in the '90s. I can't remember a 3 has there been, like, a three-hour-long movie recently?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
'Cause remember it was, like, such a big deal and that, like, they had, what, Benjamin Button and they had Mr. Holland's Opus and they had, like, all the Talented Mr. Ripley, like, all these three-hour-long movies, and I was just like, "Oh m" Titanic, that was, like, 6, I don't even know. It was like, "Oh my gosh, can we please stop with the three-hour-long movies?" But I don't know if they have had anything recently.
yeah, the Lord of the Rings was the ones that killed me. I mean, and then they went and added more material, in the DVDs and stuff.
I think Lord of the Rings was still under 3, though. I think it was, like, 2.5 before the extended, cuts. I think the theatrical cuts were still, like, 2.5. I'd have to look.
Yeah. Okay.
You must have watched all the extended versions. Those were long.
I don't. They all felt very long. Yeah, they're. I don't think that there's going to be that many of those. I mean, Marvel and Disney and Star Wars are kind of like the only ones doing these 2.5, 3 hour movies anymore.
Mhm.
I think even most of the Marvel movies are running 2.5 hours, but they've got the budget to do that. They're filling the theaters. They're the ones that are still getting seats, and this just recently, Spider-Man No Way Home was crossed the $1 billion mark in a
Mhm.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So they're the ones filling seats, so they can do the length of movies they want. Theaters don't want movies longer than 2 hours really because it screws up their scheduling of the
Turnover. Yeah.
turnover. There screws up their turnover schedule.
Yeah. And can you imagine, like, if you're doing something where you're releasing also into like, if you're putting it in the movie theater and you're also putting it on streaming, like, I'm sorry, I don't think I wanna sit there for a 3-hour movie, even if I'm in the comfort of my own home. Like, it's just too long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and if you ever tried to watch, a Lord of the Rings movie or any of these, really long movies on a commercial, cable network,
Oh, golly.
and then they put commercials in. So now your Harry Potter that was 2.5 hours is like 4 hours long. That's nuts. So yeah, that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder because I feel like, I mean, we are kind of getting into shorter content, so I kind of wonder if eventually maybe even films might get shorter or like they'll like do a normal 2.5 hour movie and cut it into parts 1 and 2.
Right. Well, I feel like things like the Netflix Lost in Space series I just recently watched was basically an 8 episode, movie.
Mhm.
It's one story all the way through. It's just, divided up into parts. So it's that cinematic filmmaking for TV, basically. That's kind of the mid ground, I guess. You can do something really long in one story, but you break it into episodes. So I don't know. So you've got acts and sub acts and things like that.
Yeah. I do
Yeah.
have to wonder, I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with script length, but I kind of wonder, like, with all the remakes and stuff, like, if we're consuming on our tablets and on our laptops, assuming that the average person doesn't have, like, a huge theatrical home setup, some movies just don't translate as well to a small screen. Like, Gravity looked beautiful in the theaters. I don't know if I could watch it at home. Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, those are very epic. Gone with the Wind, some of the scenes in that, they were meant for, like, the big screen, and you can't watch it on a phone.
No, it's not the same experience. And,
Yeah.
there's several large, big directors out there that have voiced their hatred of mobile devices and home theater because of that. So I can't necessarily disagree with them. I think that, yeah, there's, having been stuck at home watching movies on, on a 43-inch, TV, even if it's in 4K, is still
Mhm.
not the same as going to the movies. And, I was
Yeah.
really excited. When we were able to go back to the movies, I actually went back and saw a whole bunch of movies. But now I feel like I'm stuck at home again because I can't with the latest wave. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
to the theater, even if I'm like, unless I'm the only person in the theater. So it's
And
really
you
killing me
can't
because,
guarantee that, yeah.
yeah, I really want to see Spider-Man No Way Home too. It's like killing me.
Oh, that would probably be really good in the theater, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
But
at
I'm gonna
home.
I'm gonna have to wait a few more months and then try to avoid spoilers, which is really hard because all the MCU things are connected. Yeah, maybe for that I'll splurge and buy a bigger TV, get like a 75-inch TV.
I was gonna say Super Bowl's coming up, and you could just wait till the Super Bowl sales happen and then
Yeah,
buy it to watch your movies.
I wonder why sports never change the length of the games.
I mean, no, sports in general, they're usually, like, the same length, but, like, it's only when you go into overtime.
Except baseball. Baseball can go forever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah,
baseball? Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
No, but I like, you think about it, people make things longer and shorter for various economic reasons. I wonder why the football leagues didn't say, well, let's make the games more like soccer. Let's make them 90-minute games so we have more game and then we have more commercial time. I wonder if the economies of scale aren't there or something.
Football's really long. What are you talking about? Football's like 3 or 4 hours.
No, well, it depends on the teams.
Are you talking pro or are you talking like, pee-wee football from your, like, nephew's little school?
Pro and college, but no, it depends on the game. I mean, if one team trounces the other team and runs the clock down fast, a game can be over in an hour and a half.
Oh, well, those are never fun to watch, but
There's only an hour of quote unquote game time in a football game. So 4
oh, but
quarters,
then
right?
with how many timeouts they call and
Timeout.
how many ad
Exactly.
breaks, yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, they're like a half-day event. They're very long.
The thing with script length is obviously on a streaming network, they want movies that are a certain length because, uh, just cost. And it's not even like cable. Cable TV is trying to program in hour-long slots, maybe half-hour slots. But streamers can program it in any length they want, but they want people who are going to watch the movies. I don't know if there's any studies over whether people prefer movies of certain lengths or not, but I think they're probably between that 90 and 120 minute range settled, that most people are okay with that length of a movie, because you got to eat or you got to use the restroom, that kind of stuff.
You know what I would argue, and I only say this having dipped my toe into the publishing world. There's word counts for different types of novels, right? Like if you're writing YA, you can write less than if you're writing high fantasy, than if you're writing a drama, blah, 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 blah. And part of it, I mean, obviously you want to tell the story. And if you go over, Harry Potter, that's fine. But you kind of don't want to go less because people want to feel like they're getting their money's worth. If I'm going to spend $15 on a book, I want to know that it was a good 2-3 hours worth of my time versus like an hour. So I'm sure that part of that, at least with film, like, would you rather spend $20 on a 40-minute movie or $20 on a 2.5-hour movie? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you want good storytelling, but you also want to feel like it was worth that money.
Yeah. So the endless debate over script length continues, I guess.
And I think it's going to keep changing, as streamers get more prevalent, and who knows what'll happen with broadcast and all that stuff.
I mean, I think the experiments are good, but I think they keep bringing us back to pretty much the same basic, lengths that kind of work for different genres, different age groups and different genres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's just psychology at play, really, when it comes down to it. It's economic for the studios, but it's psychology for the viewers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Never thought of that like that. What do you guys think? Let us know. You can find us online at writersgrouptherapy.com and also at WG Therapy on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know. And we will see you guys soon.